Welcome to Three Generations, the podcast where three friends from three different generations and diverse walks of life come together to explore, debate, and celebrate the world around us. Meet Jess, the millennial of the group. Tech-savvy and socially conscious, Jess offers fresh perspectives and a passion for innovation and change. Then there's me, Julia. I'm the Gen Xer, known for my independent spirit and pragmatic approach to life. I bring a wealth of experience and no-nonsense attitude to our discussions. And finally, Marie, our boomer, who adds wisdom and wealth of her life experience. Her perspectives are shaped by decades of witnessing societal shifts and cultural evolutions. Together, we navigate through a variety of topics, offering unique viewpoints from our distinct generational backgrounds. And while we may not always see eye to eye, our love for each other and commitment to healthy discourse keep us united. So sit back, relax, and get ready to dive into the dynamic and ever-evolving dialogue of three generations. We promise to challenge your thinking, broaden your horizons, and maybe even make you laugh along the way. So let's get started.
Let's go.
All right.
This is exciting.
Yes.
Very exciting. We have been talking about doing this for like 7 months now.
That's true.
You know, it's really exciting because for the listener, we have been talking about doing this for a long time. And now that we actually be able to get to sit down and execute this, it's really exciting. So for everybody that's listening, thank you so much. We appreciate you. We love you. And we hope that, you know, you get as much out of this as we're going to, because our conversations really are so rich. And I believe that they just have something to offer for everybody out there. So, you know, very exciting for all of us, and we're really excited for you. The goal, just like Jules said earlier, the goal for us is really to get an understanding from different perspectives, just different unique personalities, and being able to come together and maybe have the same opinion, but mostly have a different opinion, and just have different facets and how all of that comes together through our different generational, just what's built into us, right? Mm-hmm. So Jules, what do we have on the agenda today?
Well, I was thinking about, I don't know if it's because of July, but, Marie had a very good question I've been thinking about for a while. So, Marie, do you want to ask this question?
Yes. I want to know, what does freedom mean to you?
Ooh, that can mean a lot.
Yes. And it really does come down to, there's many different areas when you think of freedom, but what do you think of freedom as a whole in reference to your life? And then in reference to where we live, what we do, who we know, and what are we comfortable with?
That's a really good question, because even with my husband, who's also a Gen Xer, he's got a different definition for me. I can tell you that right now. So I was born and raised in Brazil. So for part of my formative years was there. And Brazil, you just learn right away. You learn early on as a child to keep your wits about you when you're going out. You hold your backpack or your purse a certain way. You're more aware of your surroundings, because it's just commonplace to have, perhaps to get robbed. And so that definitely alters your perception of what it means to be free. Whereas my husband grew up on a farm in the U.S., and they don't even lock their doors and that's just like unfathomable to me. Like, what do you mean your door is unlocked?
That's
what do you
so
mean?
True. And I grew up probably a half hour, 25 minutes away from where your husband grew up, and it was the same where I grew up. Like, we didn't lock the doors. You leave your car unlocked. You don't lock the doors. And I wouldn't do that now. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't do that now for sure, but I totally feel that.
Even though you don't have, you don't really have neighbors like close by, like
right,
like a subdivision or something like that. Yeah, so for me, I just, and once that my experience was kind of set like that, even though I no longer obviously live in Brazil, I just can't shake some of those experiences. So I still find myself like hyper aware when I'm out and about. I definitely lock and triple check, and if there's a bolt, I'm clicking that. So I can't really shake that, and that's just the personal freedom, bodily physical freedom part of the question. I'm sure this question is very nuanced, and I think it can mean lots of things.
Oh yeah.
But don't you think too, Julia, that the times that we're in today, that we have to be precautious? Don't you think that even though you say it's a personal, shouldn't we all be there with what's happening in the world today? Do we think that, do we trust people as much as we did years ago?
That's good.
I mean, yes, I come from a small town, and we never locked our doors. You know, kids came and went, relatives, friends, neighbors. There was no such thing. And so, but today, I mean, probably up until, well, I don't know, I would say probably I would say actually before COVID. I didn't lock my doors.
Wow.
I didn't lock my doors.
And that wasn't too long ago. That's
No.
just 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
4 or 5 years
5
ago.
years ago.
Yeah.
You know, not that I live country,
Right.
but I'm rural,
Right.
but yet know my neighbors enough. I mean, I would lock it at night, of course.
Yeah.
But during the day and stuff, the house is wide open.
Right.
But during COVID, I think that changed people. And I think we all have to be very aware
Yeah.
of our personal area
Yeah.
because people are angry.
Yeah.
And so their defensives are always up.
Right.
And, I feel that in my subdivision with like, for example, if people put political signs up, that you do definitely would, okay, that's a choice, right? And that's another question about freedom, a freedom to express your opinion. But like, you would know too that you don't know if there's a neighbor that like really hates that opinion, and that maybe you should definitely not lock your door or have some kind of security system to be aware. People do things from as passive aggressive as stealing your signs to maybe making you a target of their frustration because you have a sign that says you support Trump or whoever the candidate is.
Right. Or like the Biden-Harris signs or yeah, absolutely. And I have seen that. I have seen where, people see on their security cameras where people will run up and take the sign, you know what I mean? Run away with it or try to destroy it or whatever.
Well, believe it or not, that has always happened.
Yeah.
It's always happened as far back as I can remember, even in small towns. You know, we weren't as divided to the point of hating the other person.
Right.
But we would do things like that. We would go steal their signs. And
Would that be for like local, you know what I mean? Local governments, like your townships and stuff like that. Would that be that type of thing? Or would it be the big ones, like your presidential election?
we, even in a small town, we used to do it to everybody.
Yeah.
We but we didn't, the perspective was different.
Right.
It wasn't considered a personal attack. It was more, oh, okay, she took my sign, I'm going to run over and take her sign type thing. I think there was a little more play in the attitude of that.
I like that you say play because the first thought that came to my mind was, oh, you going to steal my sign? I'm going to run out the billboard up the road, girl. Let's go. You know what I mean? Like, game on.
Yes, and it really was that kind of attitude. It wasn't this hatred that seems to, this discord that seems to come in, that people take such a, like you said, when you see it, and take such a disdained attitude towards it. It's like, and it goes right back to the question, what does freedom mean to you? Does that mean that only applies to you and not your neighbor because they think differently? You know, where's that fine line for you?
Right.
Yeah, I can tell you, I've had some hesitation sometimes even to express my opinion, say on a, in that way, like say at my home with a a sign or on social media, because the backlash, the potential backlash, and the how people would like think of you or engage with you over the keyboard or something like that can be very aggressive. And it's like, who needs that in their life? But at the same time, it's like, am I giving up or of my freedom to just express that?
And that's the fine line, Jules. Where do we don't give up our own freedom and in cowering back, but yet not to be aggressive onto someone else either. So I guess the question is, where is that fine line that each of us draws? And again, that comes down to, I think, to generation. I'm not as accepting for a lot of things that I think other generations are.
Oh, that's a good point.
Why do you think that?
Well, I think my tolerance, I don't think my tolerance is as high as it goes down into the generations. We were, a big thing, it used to be a saying with my generation is, we don't need Big Brother.
Oh, yeah.
And so we don't have that tolerance to be told law after law. Not that we're not abiding, but some of the laws that are coming forward, like, is that really necessary? Like, maybe it is in today's times. I don't have the tolerance for that. I think, and we've all had conversations. We've had conversations about abortions. We've had conversations about marriages. We've had conversations about gay people. We've had conversations about our religion. So the thing of it is where does that freedom, personal, and the generation we come from, how do we mix that? How do we come together to not to see each other's perspective, but to engage?
So do you mean, like, how do you balance personal freedom with social responsibility?
Yes.
I feel like that comes down to being willing to hear the other side, to truly listen to it, not just what's the word I want to look for? I feel like in a lot of the things that I see, a lot of stuff is like a volley. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to one up you. I want to one up you. Well, I got this one. I got that one. You know what I mean? It's kind of like when somebody tells a story and they're like, oh, this happened. They're like, oh, ho, ho. But that happened to me. But when it happened to me, not to get off topic, but it's just like sometimes I feel like we get into a volley when it comes to these things because we're not willing to just sit down and really listen and absorb what's being spoken to us. Does that make sense?
It does. I think I can tell. You can feel it too when someone's just waiting to speak and they're not really listening to you. 'Cause
Right.
They're just waiting for that moment to just tell you their point, and
Right.
they're absolutely right about their point, and they're
Right.
not really considering even your perspective. It's
Right.
You can feel it.
It almost feels like sales. Does that make sense? Like I'm trying to sell this to you and I want you to buy it. But
Yes.
It's like we need to get back to the perspective of somebody doesn't need to think something the exact same way as you.
Yes.
And you can be okay with that.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of times when we get upset at someone for not having the same opinion as us, to me, it's more of like are you really structurally sound on what you're standing on?
Well, again, going back to what you're both saying, is the person in front of you hearing you or are they listening to you? Because a lot of times people will say, do you hear me? Oh, I hear you. But are you listening?
Yeah.
It's two different things.
Yeah.
It's two different things. When you're listening, you're actually, like Julia said, you're paying attention to what the other person is trying to express to you. And that's what we need to be open for.
Right.
Because we're not always right. Because we do look at things from our own perspective. But when you bring it into a conversation, not a yelling match, not a mine better than you, which was what you're speaking about, you can come together. You can agree to disagree.
Right, absolutely. Because in my eyes, if you're getting strong emotions from what you believe in and the other person doesn't 100% believe in it, to me, that tells me sometimes you might not be as 100% in it as you feel yourself. Like that foundation isn't as strong for you either, because you're getting upset because you can't convince this other person the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, to me, when you find that truth that you find your freedom in, you know what I mean? That's really what we find freedom in, is truth in my eyes. And if I truly 110% believe, this is what I think, this is what I know, I'm okay with this, I'm totally sound in it. And if, you don't agree as the same thing as I do, I'm okay with it, because I got a firm foundation in this. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm saying?
So is this the crossover? Is this the crossover of the boundary of what your perspective of freedom is? Is that when you're stepping over your bounds, when you will not listen to another opinion?
I feel like I could still listen to somebody's opinion. I'm still willing to open the window. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Open the window, open the door, and I'll talk to you through the screen door. I always want to be in a position for growth. And I can't say that for everybody else. And I don't know what their position is on it, but I'm always willing to hear somebody out, because it gives me an insight to why you think the way you think, why you feel the way you feel, why you get upset at what you get upset at. You know what I mean? It gives me an opportunity to understand the individual at a stronger level than just a surface level on things. With that, I can place a boundary around myself, not necessarily to keep myself I don't want to say chained up, you know what I mean? Like the image that I just got is like when you put your dog on one of those leads or whatever, and he has a certain length he can go and he can run back and forth in that length, and that's all he's got. You know what I mean? I wouldn't necessarily call it that, but I think at the end of the day, it's a boundary that I freely put up of my own decision, and I can freely take that boundary down. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Like when I was saying, I can open the screen door, I can hear you out. But let's say, you give it to me in a way where I'm like, wow, that does feed into me. Wow, that is a truth to me. You know what I mean? But being in that place where I'm willing to listen to you instead of just trying to volley back, you know what I mean? And I'm like, nope, this is my side. Nope, I'm not moving. Nope, I'm not budging. I'm volleying this back to you. That's where the disconnect happens, because we're not willing. We don't have to be exactly alike and have to have the same exact opinion on everything in order to roll it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and we're a clear testament of that.
Yes.
We don't have the same opinion on everything.
No, we don't.
But don't you think, two things, don't you think your opinion is knowledge? That's number one, if you're listening to the other person, and also, don't you think the perspective of your freedom changes according to the season that the world is in?
The world, my opinion is not just the world, but where you are. I remember when I was younger, and there were different things, not just my age and experience, but also my faith, which changed everything for me. I used to be a lot more progressive and liberal, is the way I would describe it. Today, I find myself more conservative than most. So I feel like a different person, but that came with not experience and time and certain things that happened to me. So yes, I mean the world events, and I think the person just growing and have different experiences. To your point, Jess, I find that teachability is an essential element to growth, right? So even now, I feel pretty firm in my opinions, but if I'm not teachable, if I'm not at least willing to listen to something else, then I'm not growing. Either I'm going to listen to someone and just have that skill set and that maturity to be able to tolerate and listen to something that I'm that from going in knowing I don't really believe this, but if I have the tolerance and the teachability to be able to listen, either I'm going to be even more firm as to why I believe what I believe,
Yes.
or it's going to move the needle for me.
Yes.
Be like, I'm not sure about this. Maybe they're right, or maybe there's something to this, or maybe I don't quite know why I've come to this conclusion. So it's important to have those. I just find what I'm finding my experiences is that there aren't as many people, and I don't quite know why. I don't know if it's attention span or just the divisive time that we're in. I don't find that there are many people that are willing to take that approach. Like I'm completely like we're having this podcast, and this is great because this is our actually lived experience. This is what makes us so unique that we are three different generations, three different backgrounds. We know this about each other. We don't agree on everything, but we love each other dearly. So we are able to have this conversation. I find myself being attracted to not just our conversations, but podcasts like this, where there's a civil discourse, where it's not two people that already agree on things. It's like people of different, but they're having a conversation and they're allowing each other the time to explain these things. I'm finding myself attracted to that, but finding that it's kind of rare to find those conversations and those people in real life. The people that are willing to just to actually listen, not waiting to their turn to say or to form this opinion of you, but just willing to listen to each other. I'm finding that it's hard to find that.
Yes, it's a lost art, okay? And my generation, conversation was everything. It's the way we communicated. We didn't have, a lot of technology and that type of stuff. So everything was coming together over the table, having a cup of coffee, conversations, whether it's families, neighbors, our pastors. It all came from conversations. So to me, I am that generation. Just like you spoke, I seek out people to have a cup of coffee with, more so than I will text you or call you. I'd be like, hey, let's meet. I'll meet you in the coffee shop. Stop over. That's my avenue.
Right.
Because it's what we did.
Right.
And it's still what we do.
Well, it's a more personal connection too. You know what I mean? Like you can see in a lot of the struggle that, and this is just from a personal opinion, this isn't something that I'm picking up. It's a lot of the younger generation really struggles to have that personal connection with people because everything is over a device. You know what I mean? Especially for the kids that really their most influential years were during COVID, where everybody had to be home. Everything was through technology. Everything was like that. You lose that disconnection. You lose that, I want to say like battle strategy. That's kind of what comes to mind, but not like, I don't want to look at it as like a fight type of thing, just when you're having normal conversation with each other, as much as like just basic instinctual tools that we just use in our brain with how we organize things through conversation or facial expressions or just being confident in who we are in our own opinion, and you know what I mean, not feeling like I need you to feel like this is how you feel so that I feel comfortable. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because I feel like deep down, it makes me wonder, like not necessarily because there's a lot of people that have their opinions through life experiences that they've had, whether they're good, bad, indifferent, that truly believe that. But I feel like sometimes too, there's a lot of times where people have that opinion because, and they need you to believe it because of I want to say like insecurity. I can't think of another word besides that, but like the more people I have on my team, the more secure I'm going to be in this opinion, versus being like 2 people out of a group of 15 that only feel that way, and everybody else feels the opposite way.
Well, let's bring that up. Let's bring COVID up. What's your opinion? Do you feel like you lost freedom during COVID? Do you feel like you gained freedom?
I gained. I don't know about you, Jules.
Oh, I feel like I lost.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I feel
Dig into that. I want to know.
well, I felt like I lost because just nobody knew what the heck was going on. And at first they were like, oh, 2 weeks to slow the spread. And then it was like this open-ended thing. We never knew what was going on. I already didn't trust the news, so that's where I'm coming from.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm already like that, wired like that. And then just no end in sight. And then just the whole thing with the mask wearing and who can go to work and who can't. And then the part that I think really scared me and really I had to think about my freedom a lot was over the choice for vaccination. I mean, right now we enjoy the choice of like, I don't have to take a flu shot if I don't want to. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden that there was this, and I'm not an anti-vaxxer. My kids, vaccinated for the regular things that they've always had it.
Right.
But when that came down the pike, that this thing was so new, we hardly had any information on it. And oh, by the way, it may be that you have to get vaccinated, otherwise you can't work, or you'll lose this benefit, or someone has to check. Like nobody knows that I'm vaccinated for regular things, but now I have to provide proof that I'm vaccinated for this thing that they don't even know what it is, what it does, the side effects. And I wanted to have a choice over my body and what I was comfortable with. And I felt like we got close to a place where maybe we wouldn't have had that. And I was already thinking in my head, okay, if I feel very strongly about this, about my character, if I feel strongly about this, is it something I'm going to bend the knee on? What is my life going to look like? Mm-hmm. What does it mean if I don't have these freedoms? Mm-hmm. And because it's me against a bigger, it's not a conglomerate,
right?
Mm-hmm. So I felt very scared back then,
right? Yeah, and you had a different point of view with everything that you saw as well. For me, I can't even tell you how much freedom I gained out of that season. It was unbelievable amounts of freedom. It was before I met either of you guys. When COVID started, I was going to school, and I was just finishing up my degree. It was just an Associates of Science, and I was just finishing up my degree, and I was working, and I was putting in hours. I was putting in but it wasn't anything out of the norm for me. I moved out when I was 17. I had 3 jobs when I was 18. I worked 7 days a week, and through my whole 20s, I worked 6-7 days a week. I've always had 2 jobs, and I never had one gig going. So when COVID happened, and it was like, everything's got to shut it down, and it was during March. I remember, because I was still bartending at the time too. I bartended for 12 years, and I was still bartending, and I remember it was literally St. Patrick's Day weekend was when things started getting crazy. Because for anybody that works at a restaurant or works in the bar industry, everybody knows St. Patrick's Day weekend. It's get your battle ready. Get your game face on. We got to sling some corned beef, boys. It's crazy. But I remember that weekend was when everything really started shutting down, and we still, were open, and where I'm from, the city, where I'm from, they do what's called a bus run, and they have like 7 buses going around the whole city, picking up people from all different bars and busing everybody to all the different bars. And, and it's, quote unquote, COVID's just starting, right? And you've got people packed, like 30, 40 people packed on a bus running in the bar all at the same time. And right after that bus run and that day, everything shut down. It was all restaurants, all bars, everything shut down. And then I had to do school from home, right? So for me, from always being go, 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 like I'm always on the grind, I'm always going, like I can't stop, and to being told, no, now you got to stop. Now you got to sit. Go sit down. Go be still. And when I tell you the amount of freedom that I got out of that, because I always felt like I had to be on the grind. I can't sit still. I got to be doing something. I'm always on the grind. What's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And to be able to just shut everything off and just being able to sit on my back deck and have the sun come up and drink a cup of coffee and let the dogs, go around and just listen to the birds chirp and stuff. Like, I remember sitting on my back deck and having that experience. Just sitting there with a cup of coffee, sun's coming up, I'm looking at all the trees, and it's just quiet. And I was just like, dang, this is nice. And I had a great summer. I know it sounds horrible because there's a lot of people that had some seriously horrible experiences during COVID. And I don't want to downplay that. There's some people that lost people. People did lose their lives. There were some horrible things that happened. But that summer for me was so relaxing and so freeing. And it's the most rest I've probably had in my entire life.
But there were also, I mean, not just people. There was people who suffered economically too.
Yeah.
We had an excellent massage school here in our area, and it couldn't survive. I mean, you can't do massages. That's like very direct with people.
Yeah.
And then movie theaters, that entire industry.
Oh yeah.
Right. I mean.
Yeah, you can't go into a closed room.
You can't.
Yeah.
It's very social, so it depends on the industry. But conversely, like you said, for example, my husband went, that the first thing that happens, like everybody worked from home. And he did, the nature of his work is not like in those industries, it's through the computer. So that was doable. And he did enjoy that because then he didn't have the commute, and then he actually got in the best shape of his life and he's already a fit guy. Mm-hmm. Because he could meal prep, he could exercise from home. He had control over his day.
Oh yeah.
So he loved it because as long as he got the work done, now he doesn't have the commute, and he can be home, and he can decide how his day goes and feel more in control.
Right.
And he still has that to his day because they never went back.
Right.
They couldn't afford it.
Right.
That's one of the things that changed. So that helped. But I worried a lot about personal freedom. I had a young daughter in school that affected her differently as well.
Right.
But I think it was like the fact that we got so close to certain things being like, you may not have this freedom anymore, just like that.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, with very little information about what the heck we were dealing with and why, it was hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And see, I look at it totally different.
All right, that's why we're here.
Yeah.
That's why we're doing this.
Give us the tea.
Different from both of you, really, because it's something that I've been through before.
What?
So, we had problems. We had epidemics of measles, smallpox.
Oh, yeah.
And those are all things I get vaccinated for, but I didn't think about how long.
Polio, too, right?
Yeah.
Polio was terrible.
Yeah.
The lung disease, I can't think of the name of it right now, where we actually did sanitariums for them to go to.
Iron lung.
Yeah. When you had measles, any of those diseases, when the doctor came and that was the diagnosis, there was a sign put on your door.
Oh, man.
Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
So anybody that was coming to that door knew that in there was measles.
If they wanted to come to the door.
Yes. But neighbors, again,
right.
That's how we communicated.
Right.
So, I mean, so I had been through it. So to me, I don't want it to seem like it wasn't a big deal. People died.
Right.
But people die in every sense of the word for diseases.
Right.
So to me, I had a completely different look, which you both knew. I'm a caregiver for my husband.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole train of thought was just opposite of Julia's. Mine was just get the damn shot.
Right.
I know.
Because my perspective was to protect him.
Right.
Yeah. Had nothing to do, probably if it was just me and not him, I could have cared less.
Yeah, you'd be like, I ain't got time for that.
I am that person that, listen, I respect you enough that you live your life the way you need to live it. Mm-hmm. I don't have to agree.
Right.
But I love you no matter what.
Right.
Okay. But I don't have to accept your lifestyle. So my point of view was just the opposite. Mine was like, yeah, he's not going to see anybody that's not vaccinated. He's not going to see a nurse that's not vaccinated because his health was my concern.
Mm-hmm.
And as you both know, I was not concerned. I went out into the community. I served the community.
And
I
you
lost-
suffered from that too with your family.
I lost my family, did not accept that. They would not see me. They would not allow me to see my grandchildren. I couldn't come to their house. But it's a decision, again, it's kind of from my age group, but yet it's like you say, Julia, it becomes personal. You are not going to tell me what to do with my life.
Well, that's exactly how I was feeling.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And you and I had conversations about that, and I, to this day, respect you
Right.
for the decisions that you made.
You guys just executed differently.
Yes.
We did, but
yeah.
we respected each other. She didn't
Right.
shun me because I
No,
felt differently.
absolutely
Right.
not. I continued to have coffee. We continued to see each other.
Right.
You know, but that's where the conversations come in.
Right.
How are you feeling? Why are you feeling that way?
Right.
And be acceptant.
Right.
Accepted that the person she truly felt like her freedoms were
Right.
being taken from her.
Right.
And in essence, to a degree, that's true.
Mm-hmm. It is.
When it becomes national, you need to do this. We speak about this even in the Bible. You know, if you don't get the sign,
Oh yeah, the mark.
you know, you can't get food. That's from Revelation.
Right.
Okay, so I know a lot of Christians looked at it that way, like, oh, you know, but we have to, the Lord will always lead us in the direction we need to be in.
Yeah.
That I believe that no matter what. But we must respect the personal feelings.
Yeah. Yeah, because here's one of the biggest things that I got out of that. Because like I said, you guys both kind of had the same thing. You're not going to take my freedom away from
Right.
me. You guys both had the same exact foundation
Yes.
that laid out what you guys executed. But you guys just went on different levels.
Yes.
But would we have been able to find that root without sitting down and having a conversation over it?
Yes.
Do you know what I'm saying?
And not ignore each other.
Right.
Not, you know,
Right.
have shun away from each other and let that affect our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because what I saw was a lot of name calling too, so that just
Yeah.
shuts down any debate, anything like that.
Right.
Marie never called me names. She never berated me.
Right.
You know, even though we had the same value,
Right.
but different conclusions.
Right.
You know, from it. So she knew where I stood. I knew where she stood. She never treated me differently. How dare you not get this vaccinated? But I also liked it, and I respected it, and it didn't offend me. I think in large part because she didn't treat me differently,
Right.
And she actually heard me, and made space for me to hear her. I was fine with her boundary regarding her husband, who was in a vulnerable position. So I was okay with going. Okay, I feel differently than you do. My boundary is I got to protect my husband, and based on the information that we have, because you have to make decisions based on what information is available at the time. My boundary is I can't let you get that close to my husband because he's vulnerable. I was like, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
But it was hard. That kind of treatment of each other and that viewpoint, I just found it, again, one of those things that was rare to see.
Yeah.
At work, it was very like the vaxxers against the anti-vaxxers. And I'm not even really anti-vaxxer. I was just like, my conscience just couldn't get over this one.
Yeah.
And not just that, Jules. It did come down to information. Whether it was good information, bad information, there just wasn't enough information. I think, that's my personal opinion, for people to make the right choice. It's like it was this one day and then it was this the next day. Then no. You got to give me the facts and I'll make my decision.
Yeah. And
We didn't have that.
We didn't,
have
and
that.
the information changed. So
constantly. And I got to
Daily.
be
All the
honest
time.
with you, I think that's another reason why throughout COVID I felt so much peace. Because earlier, it's funny because you said the news outlets gave you this, like, you felt like they were kind of taking a little bit of freedom away from you because of the way that they were kind of saying this is the way things are.
Yep.
But for me, I stopped watching it altogether.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't watch either side because I remember watching something and realizing they're not really saying anything that just came out of that press conference. I feel like I'm at like a high school dance right now and we're talking about what Judy was wearing to prom. You know what I mean? So I stopped watching the news completely because I was like, this is a joke. You know what I mean? I remember in the very beginning of COVID, and I was just like, they had a press conference at the White House, and they had a lady that came that handled when HIV was getting out of control. And I don't remember that, Marie. You probably remember that more than I do, but she was around when that was getting out of control. And she was like, listen, you guys, this isn't our first, rodeo. I'm just paraphrasing. And she said, we're going to get through this. And they had the CEOs from Target, Walmart, CVS, Rite Aid, all these people that compete against each other. And, you guys remember we couldn't find toilet paper. We couldn't find Lysol. We couldn't find, you know what I mean? I'm like, what do we do? And they were like, we're going to come together and we're going to make sure that the public has everything that they need, because that was basic necessities that, we needed. And nobody could get it because everybody was buying so much stuff out of, being scared. And they were coming together saying, we're all going to fight through this together. We are going to stay united. We're going to help each other through this. And then I remember a press conference cut to the next thing. And they were like, did you guys see that he was around somebody that had COVID and he's not getting tested? And I was like, yo, I ain't got time for this drama. You know what I mean? I just shut it off. And when I tell you I didn't watch the news throughout that entire summer of 2020, didn't watch it.
Which is challenging because I also didn't want to watch the news because I was starting to get even more of a heightened sense of like, this is a lot of fear mongering, and one type of news channel has one bent one way and another has it bent another way, and I'm thinking, well, who's behind all that, right? Because and
what's true,
right? But I was watching too because then. We're dealing with this epidemic. So I'm like, well, I'm just waiting for the information. I'm waiting to know more because it just felt like we didn't know much of anything. And I remember one of the first things that came out, even from, was like, well, if you get this vaccine, then you're not gonna get COVID. That's how it was presented.
Yes. Yeah.
And so then obviously then the logic became, well, these people that are not getting it, they're not concerned for themselves or the vulnerable people around them, because this is going to prevent them from getting COVID.
Right.
But that's what was presented at the time. And now we know that that's not true.
Right.
But it's, so it's just it was just a combative time.
It was.
Yeah.
Especially for livelihood too.
Well, I think that was a great test for freedom. It was a great test for this country, for freedom. And not just this country, for the world. We were not the only ones battling this. The whole world was battling it.
And the world was battling it differently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But is that not a wake-up call? Like, do you realize how easily your freedoms can be taken away from you in a heartbeat?
Right.
In a heartbeat.
Right.
So, and we've had this discussion. I am that person. It is a slippery slope. When the government or the Justice Department or the Supreme Court makes a decision to take someone's freedom away, to me, that's a slippery slope. I don't think, according to the Founding Fathers, that they ever thought the Constitution would be used to take freedoms away.
Right. Right.
And so I think that, to me, it was a big wake-up call, and everybody's perspective was different on it. I also think that it's a further conversation that we could have, in the weeks to come. I'd like us to really think more about it. And what would you think about what would you have done differently?
Oof. I want to crack that egg right now, girl. You can't put that up in front of me and then tell me to talk about it later.
Well, I'm hoping Julia set up a email, correct?
That's right.
And so I would love to hear some input
Yes.
on that and come back to this subject
Yes.
and hopefully hear from some of our listeners.
Yeah.
And let's bring this back to the table.
And always, no matter when the date it gets posted or when you listen to it, please feel free to shoot a question in, because I feel like there's never the bottom of the well
Absolutely.
when it comes to any topic, and getting different perspectives, because there's more perspectives than just the three of us, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And more life experiences that bring people to different opinions. So I would love that. So Jules is going to tell us what the email is, and it'll also be within the description of the podcast page if you guys would like to reach out to Jules, Marie, or me, and we'll be able to get that communication rolling.
All right, so if you want to get in touch with us, our email address is podcastthreegenerations@gmail.com. That's podcast, podcastthreegenerations @gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And this is a really
100%. Good,
Great.
bad, or indifferent. Let her
That's
rip,
right.
tater chip.
that's I love that saying.
Come on. But yeah, so
Thank you so much for listening to us. We have lots to say, as you can tell.
we do.
We'd love to hear from you. We're going to close this for today, but we're going to come back with much more topics. Thank you so much for tuning in to Three Generations. We hope you enjoyed this conversation and that we sparked some thoughts of your own. And remember, our goal is to foster understanding and respect, even when we don't always agree. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment or send us an email if you enjoyed today's episode. And your feedback helps us grow and continue to bring you engaging content. Join us next time for more lively discussions, insights, and a bit of fun as we explore new topics together. Until then, keep the conversation going, stay curious, and embrace the differences that makes our world so vibrant. From Jess, Julia, and Marie, thanks for listening to Three Generations. See you next time.
Yeah, we love you guys.